Welcome in, everybody, to Pro Football Plus. As always, it is a pleasure to have all of you in the audience with us tonight. Shane and Austin here. Again, the NFL season is winding up here, man. We're already 10 weeks in. We're already a week and a half away from Thanksgiving. We have less left of the regular season than we do behind us, but we are still talking a ton of NFL football from now all the way to February. And even then, we'll be talking a bunch more pro football with the draft and with free agency. So keep with us. And by the way, I haven't said this in a while. Those of you listening to the audience, if you got stuff you want us to talk about, hit us up with it. We'll trot it out in a special segment or something. And if you want to be on the show, I've mentioned this probably back in September, the last time I said it. If you want to be on the show, whether you know a whole bunch of NFL football or you just know a little bit, you're still welcome to hop on with us and chat it up with us and let us know where your strengths are. We'd be glad to have you on board for one of our shows or several if you like it and if you're good enough at it. There's some learning curve, but it's not super hard to just get on here and chat. So hop on board with us if it's something you want to do. Reach out in the comments. Shane, pleasure to see you as always, man, from way up north. Tell us how the weather is, and then give us your lead story.
Well, I mean, for everybody in the South, I'd imagine they count it as cold. But right now, it's a pretty mild fall right now for the northern sector. So,
all right, fair enough. Lead story of the week, or first lead story.
Lead story of the week, when you're talking about cold, we'll go with cold shoulders. Offensive coordinators and coaches' hot seats are starting to warm up again. Chicago has probably made the move that everyone has expected for a while now, moving Shane Waldron out, and it's a hot season for coaches. Like, now is when the time comes up. Saints have made their move. Some other teams have already been in trouble, but I think that's one of the big stories. Is there going to be a change? Did the Bears wait too long? In my mind, I think they did. So I think that goes forward, and there's probably a lot of heads to fall coming pretty quickly.
I think there are, before the season even ends, and then right after the season ends. I think there's several people going down. It's up here on my board. Bears Waldron is out. They've only scored 27 points over the last 3 games. That's basically 3 field goals a game is what they're doing essentially. So rough for him. And it wouldn't surprise me if Eberflus isn't out the door too here if something doesn't change over the next few weeks. All right, Austin, your first lead story of the week.
Yeah, I'm going with Panthers and Bryce Young. 2 wins against 2 not so good teams. A win's a win in the National Football League. You'll take him any way you can get him. And Bryce Young looks like he's growing in confidence and having fun out there on the field again. So that's really important.
Glad to see it, man. For Bryce Young, for everybody who kind of had a stake in him. He may not ever be a Hall of Famer. It's just good to see him on the field and getting a couple of wins here, man. Going over to Germany to do it. Absolutely love it. Y'all already hit 2. I'm always interested if y'all hit anything on my board here. I saw y'all already hit 2 of them. The Saints upset the Falcons here. But the division inconsistency, this has kind of been a theme for 2 or 3 years. Every time we see a team who looks like the best team in the division, they kind of have these weeks where they just kind of flounder. And that's life in the NFL, but especially this division. The Bills with a quiet 8-2 here. They're leading the division by 4.5 games, man. It's a ridiculous number in the NFL. The Chiefs go to 9-0. Their magic, their witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, continues. They are 9-0. And then quickly at the bottom here, the Jets, the Jags, and the Cowboys. These were all teams that looked to be very promising at the outset of the season. A lot of different hopes rested on several of these teams, and they're becoming irrelevant almost here. I mean, it's not just bad. It's like nobody cares about these teams outside the fan base at this point. So they continue to drag up the rear here, all 3 of them this week. I've got one lead story that might be bigger than some of these. I put it on my second lead story. I'll get to it in a second. But Shane, back to you. What else stood out this week at the NFL level?
The other one that stuck out to me is the San Diego Chargers. I think it's one of those, not everyone is a Harbaugh fan, but for the people that buy in, and I think the team definitely has bought in. There's been some videos released today from something that he's done for, even when he was a college coach. He'll cleat up and catch passes from his quarterbacks He ended up dropping one pass that was from Justin Herbert and was as angry as he gets at himself and was telling players, I missed that. Balls were looking good. The way the Chargers think, he's changed that mentality. He's certainly let Justin Herbert play up to his potential again. And I think with the defense that's in the top of the league right now, we talked about last week when organizing some of those defenses, Jesse Minter's done a great job. And I think the Chargers, I don't know if they're going to, shock the Chiefs, but they have an ability to hold on to the ball. They play good defense, and that makes it very difficult for other teams.
Totally agree. Just a heads up for the audience and Shane and Austin. We'll get to our scramble drill guessing game later tonight. It will focus on good defenses. That'll be the theme of our segment later on tonight's show. Austin, your next lead story, man.
I think you hit on a bunch of good ones here on your board, but I take your Bills a quiet 8-2 and raise you an even quieter 7-2 by the Steelers. I think nobody's talking about how impressive that's been with a much worse team, in my opinion, than this Bills squad. The Steelers are a very quiet 7-2 right now.
Old Mike Tomlin is having himself a year, man, smirking and grinning and pushing all the right buttons and well compensated for it, as he mentioned a week or two ago. Deservedly so. Very quiet year by the Steelers. They look good. I'm interested to see Steelers and Bills are the quiet ones sitting there ready to threaten the Ravens and the Chiefs, right? So I can't wait until playoff time comes and that sorts itself out, because that's 4 good teams right there for sure. My second lead story of the night, I almost turned it into my back page, but it's the Arizona Cardinals, man. Listen, my theme is they're growing up. They just run out the Jets. They run the Jets out of the building there. They've won 4 in a row. They've won 5 out of 6. The defense, which isn't great, is still competing and finding ways to keep them in games. And Kyler Murray, who I didn't even put on the board here because I just ran out of time, he's lighting it up. The Arizona Cardinals running game is legit. It's one of the better running games in the league. And with that and Kyler Murray's athleticism, I say they're a kind of a poor man's Baltimore Ravens style of a team in that way. But if they keep growing up this fast, they may not be the poor man's anything. They may just be a legit Arizona Cardinals team. They're 6-4. They're leading the division. I'm just totally impressed here. And Jonathan Gannon here, the head coach, and Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, they just deserve a whole bunch of credit for getting this defense and offense going here. So very impressed by Arizona. They're on a hot streak. We'll see if they can keep it up, but they are really growing up fast here in the NFC West. Really want to give them just a whole world of attention there. All right, our back pages. If you got any back pages or if you want to hit any more lead stories, Shane, go ahead and trot it out, man.
I mean, my back page is going to be exactly what you just hit on. The Arizona Cardinals coming back from what, as anyone who listens knows, that's a team I've been prepared to send to the CFL in years past. They have definitely played up. This year, Kyler Murray has shown that he's grown up, taking more control of that offense. They definitely have weapons. The defense right now is kind of an unknown, unnamed defense with some guys really playing some great football for them. But I thought, just like you mentioned, the Cardinals, the other thing that kind of is that same thing in the back pages is McCaffrey back for San Francisco. And what does that West now turn into? As you said, Arizona's leading. The Rams did not have a great display again this week. Can Arizona continue to play? Does San Francisco snap out of this with McCaffrey back? What are some other options that are out West now? I think the NFC has started to completely separate itself, where the top is the top and the bottom is going to be the bottom, where the AFC there's a group of 4 that are definitely dangerous in the top, and then there's a lot of people running around trying to pick up spots in the playoffs.
I don't think the 49ers are going anywhere, even though they haven't looked like themselves. I don't think they're going anywhere, but Arizona sitting there atop the leaderboard so far. We'll see if they can continue that all the way into the postseason. Austin, back pages, lead story, third segment.
Yeah, my back page, a much smaller story, but one worth noting is there's a new lead back in Denver. The Broncos rookie Audric Estime out of Notre Dame seems to have supplanted Javonte Williams as running back. If you're a fantasy football player, he's still on the waiver wire, you absolutely should go Audric Estime because Sean Payton running backs have a history of performing well, especially stretch. So I think it's newsworthy.
Totally agree. And Sean Payton is determined to run the football this year, and he's got an offensive line that can do it. Their pass blocking isn't as good as some, but their run blocking is just about as good as anybody's. I mean, that's a heck of an offensive line he's got that can push people around sometimes. And with Estime coming in from Notre Dame, I mean, it's a good setup there. Really like it. My back page's story is we're going to Brian Flores. So he had a interview, I think today with Adam Schefter. It could have been the other day, in which Schefter specifically asked him, "Hey, would you like to coach again?" And Brian said, "Yeah, eventually. Maybe not right now. My kids like Minnesota, but yeah, eventually I'd love to get back into it." And I'm all for that. Now, caveat with Brian Flores, he doesn't always get along with everybody. He's not particularly good at holding back his opinion, right? And that got to be a real problem in Miami. That was a much bigger problem than his performance. It was the power struggle there with the general manager, Chris Greer. And so I'm hoping maybe sort of he can figure that side of it out. But listen, you look at his record there in Miami. The first year was rough, 5-11, but he picked it up in year two at 10-6. They didn't make the playoffs, which is kind of luck. That's not anything to do with him. Year three, he's 9-8 again. So back-to-back winning seasons, they let him go, but he didn't make the playoffs that year either, which again makes it a lot easier to fire the coach when you can say, "Hey, not only does not agree with our vision, but he didn't make the playoffs." We know Flores loves X's and O's, and he knows X's and O's, and he's one heck of a defensive coordinator. But I think he can head coach as well. And I'm not necessarily advocating that he be hired immediately for somewhere. But over the next couple of seasons, he should be in consideration for a lot of these jobs. And we saw Tom Coughlin in Jacksonville not get along with his players, as opposed to Flores not getting along with upper management. But still, Coughlin had to grow up just a little bit, and he did. And it turned it into 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants over the years. And I think the same thing can happen here with Flores. Sometimes when you're younger, you just headstrong, you want to go up against people. And sometimes you got to learn how to give and take a little bit and get along. Flores can do that. So here over the next season, 2 seasons, I'd love for him to get his second shot. Some of the people we've seen get second chances over the years did not deserve them. All right. Flores does. So I want to see Brian Flores get this next shot over the next couple of years. Hopefully he can pick his spot. On to the struggle bus. We'll take a couple of people off. Maybe we'll add a couple of people. We talked about Matt Eberflus last week. Austin did. He definitely is on here. The Bears are on here. And I had to put Caleb Williams back on, unfortunately. Struggling so much under the last 2 or 3 weeks that he had to get back here on the struggle bus. And so that's listen, get Shane Waldron fired too, but that's where that sits. Chicago just struggling all up and down right now, man. Shane, struggle bus this week.
I mean, the big one for me was going to be the Bears, which I think we all kind of knew was coming. I'll tell you, the one that scares me the most that's been on there for a long time is the Giants. I think the level of play has really gone down. Daniel Jones struggling as much as anybody. People talking about how many starts he's gotten without being successful, where normally a lot of teams would have already benched somebody after this many starts. I really didn't have anybody else that popped up this week. The other thing that I did think maybe we have McVay kind of chilling over there before, but the Rams, I thought, did not show up well at all against Miami this week. For what a lot of people were expecting, maybe they were going to come back. Those would be the 2 that stuck out to me.
A lot of people picked the Rams in that game, and boy, a lot of people were wrong, myself included. I had them winning that game. Austin, struggle bus.
Yeah, this was because Robert Saleh is currently the bus. He got fired for the Jets, but they put up 6 points this week. They finally had a good game last week, and they really needed to string 2 together because that's something that has been tough for them. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers belongs on the bus. I don't know if the whole team belongs on the bus. I don't know if, honestly, Brees Hall be the one who deserves to be on the bus because he is not himself this year. But I feel like there needs to be some sort of Jets representative on the bus. I'm open for suggestions. I'm currently leaning just the team or maybe Brees Hall.
I agree. It should be the Jets helmet. I would be perfectly fine with putting Aaron on there, not because I blame him for all this. It's just, man, they've sacrificed so much to get you here and to keep you here and to keep you happy, and they waited another whole year for you to step up, and it's just not great. So I'd be fine with any of that, but I am going to take one person off team. Cincinnati Bengals. I know they're losing, but they're competing hard, man. We've seen them twice go up against the Ravens. And the Ravens just a little bit better here, but Bengals could have won either game, and they've been picking it up with wins lately. So I'm going to take them off the bus for now till further notice. But that's going to be our struggle bus for this week. Next week, we're going to skip it for a special segment I've asked Shane and Austin to work on. So stay tuned next week. Shane's killing us, Austin. He is destroying us, man. Me and you both took some hits last week. Austin's down to 8 cheeses, and I'm down to 93 goats and cheeses here. And Shane's sitting here at 152. So we got, I think, 2 shows to catch up to him and try to surpass him. That's where that sits. Otherwise, Shane's going to win our title here. Our matchup of the week, I'm going to run through a lot of the statistics like I usually do, and then we'll get the insight from both of these guys. Ravens offense, what do they look like? It's really good. They're first in offensive DVOA. They're first in points per game. They're first in yards per game. They're third in pass yards per game. And they are first in rushing yards per game. Statistically, it is a sick offense right now. Lamar and Derek and everybody just doing a tremendous job. What are they lining up against on Sunday with this Steelers defense? Well, it's pretty good too here. The Steelers defense in DVOA, they're 10th overall. When it comes to points per game allowed, they're second. They're just not allowing teams to score. When you look at yards per game allowed, the Steelers are 8th right now, just not giving up too much yardage either. I switched this stat a little bit. It's now passing yards allowed per attempt. The Steelers are 16th in that. And then rushing yards per carry, the Steelers are 4th. So they just don't give it up on the ground a lot, and they're not giving up too much in the air. So it's a tremendous Ravens offense against a really good Steelers defense. And then you flip it to the other side on Sunday, what we'll be looking at. Steelers, DVOA on offense. They're 18th, sort of middle of the pack. Points per game, 12. Yards per game, they're 18th. In passing yards per game, they're 26th. Not doing great passing, but that started to change a little bit. And then rushing yards per game, the Steelers are 8th, pretty good at running the football. And then our last quadrant here, the Ravens defense that'll be lining up against that Steelers offense we just looked at. Ravens defensive DVOA 16th, points per game allowed 25th. They're giving up a good bit there. Yards per game allowed, they're 27th right now. Passing yards per attempt, they are 28th right now. But they're saving grace right now for this Ravens defense. Rushing yards allowed per carry, they're number 1 in the league. They're just not allowing teams to run the football at all. All right. Ravens favored by 3, Shane. I told you all the statistics. You probably already knew them, but what's your feeling on this game on Sunday?
I'm going with the Ravens on this one, and I think like you said, offensive numbers, you take a look at it, the Ravens are kind of there. Defensively, when you look at some of the marks where they're lower, a lot of that has to do with their style of offense. When you're holding on to the ball as long as you are and you're racking up points, teams are more likely to try to throw. So like your yards per attempt for passing is going to go up. So you have some chunk yardage while you're trying to maybe play a little bit of prevent defense there. I think that them still staying tough in the run game is probably the most important thing for the Steelers, as we mentioned. Although they've managed to win, Mike Tomlin's done an amazing job switching quarterbacks. Neither quarterback has really brought the offense alive. I think the Ravens are just dominant offensively and good enough defensively to hold that.
All right, Austin, Ravens and Steelers.
I'm also going to go with the Ravens. They are the better team on paper. I think the Steelers are the better coached team, even though I do like Harbaugh for the Ravens. Alex Highsmith, I think, got ruled out again. He's missed a lot of time this year. I think that's a pretty big blow. They've been fine without him, but when you're going up against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and then Zay Flowers and ex-mate Deontay Johnson, and there's just a little bit too much firepower in this Ravens offense for me. So I'm going Ravens.
While the two of you are finalizing your bets for this week and your goat's worth, I'll tell you my take on the game. I'm going to pick the Steelers here. I don't have a great reason for it. This is kind of an emotional pick. I usually try to do it analytics-wise, and if I was doing that, I'd probably favor the Ravens. But the Steelers have continued to surprise me this year. I knew the defense would be good, but they've probably been even just a little bit better than I expected. And when I look at the offense, I'm still not sure what to do with this offense, but I can't deny that Russell Wilson has looked way better than he looked in Denver. Of course, the first year in Denver, he was dreadful. A year two, he was solid, but still not what we're seeing right now this year out of him. So he seems to have picked up the offense here and is making good throws and, for the most part, good decisions. So based on what I'm seeing right now, Steelers at home, Mike Tomlin is cooking right now. The Ravens, I think, are the better team, but they're also inconsistent, man. They've already got the 3 losses, and we've just seen other games in which they look a little sloppy. So give me the Steelers here in a really, really tight game, and I wasn't even sure what to do with it, but I've just kind of found myself leaning Steelers all week. So that's our feeling on the game. Now instead, we're going to place a couple of bets here. Shane, what you feeling confident in this week?
I'm not great with a score on this one this week, so I'm going to take the Ravens straight up, and I'll go 10 goats.
All right. Ravens to win and 10 actual goats, man. So like 70 points there, right?
Yep.
All right. Shane not letting the gas off the pedal. Austin, your bet.
Sometimes in Jeopardy, if you're a fan of Jeopardy, how you sneaky just write 0 down and bet nothing and just hope else blows it.
Right.
That's what I'm doing here. I'm holding on to my 8 cheeses. I'm holding on
Fair
tight
enough.
and just hoping you two blow it.
Fair enough. I am going to go. I wasn't quite sure where to go with this game because it's one of those games that so much can happen. If one team gets up early, say by 7-10, then game script starts to change, right? So there's so much that can happen here. Both these teams have quite a bit of muscle. I'm going to do the unthinkable, though, okay? I'm going to bet against Derrick Henry. And it's not because I don't respect him. He's great. But what we saw from Derrick Henry frequently over the years was boxes would get loaded on him, and he would kind of have these games where he would rush for 30 yards on 15 attempts. And it wasn't because he wasn't great. It's just the boxes were loaded up, and the opposing defenses were good at tackling. They were just good at gang tackling. We saw that some last week with Cincinnati. So I don't even know what Derrick Henry's under is right now. I'm going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to bet 5 goats on it. That's 50 points on the Derrick Henry under. I just don't feel like Mike Tomlin is going to allow Derrick Henry to beat him. I think he's going to try to challenge Lamar Jackson to beat him through the air, try to contain Lamar on the edges, but keep Derrick Henry at bay. All right, that's our bets. We'll see if we can catch Shane or if Shane actually comes back to the group here with the bet he's making. It's time for something that I've gotten to be my favorite here. So guessing game, scramble drill. I'm going to let Shane and Austin work their way through this. I've got here some of all the best defenses in the NFL with a couple of other kind of noteworthy defenses mixed in, okay? So this list right here is organized according to yards per game allowed, all right? That's currently how these teams are ranked. You can see it right here, 1 through 13. Then we got 18th and 20th as well. So that's currently how they're organized. I'll leave them that way. Hidden behind here is points per game allowed. That'll be this category right here. Defensive EPA, another way to measure defenses, and then defensive DVOA. Okay, so I've got 4 different ways here to measure a defense. And no stat is perfect. We've got 4 different ways to look at it. I'm going to ask y'all a series of questions tonight and see if y'all can guess the teams that fit the question. So my only question is, do y'all want to work together as a team tonight, or do y'all want to work separate and keep score?
I like team, probably.
Team, yeah. This
Okay.
is a lot of information to go through if we're going separate.
Yeah, so this is complex and convoluted and out of my own twisted mind, but I just love it because there have been years where I thought it was easy to mark the best defense, and I'm not sure it's so easy this year. There's kind of 5 or 6 to me, so that's what inspired this. Here's the first question. The Vikings right here, let's see if I can find them. They are 11th in yards per game allowed. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna skip that one. And I apologize. I actually screwed up my own question. So we're going to skip the first question here. But here's the Vikings, okay? I'll go ahead and give you all the hint here. The Vikings were 11th in yards per game allowed. They're top 3 in all the other 3 categories, okay? So by every defensive measurement, the Vikings look good. After that, which other team ranks top 3 in both EPA and DVOA? There's only one other team that fits that category. The Vikings fit that category, but there's one other team that is top 3 in EPA and DVOA. So complicated question, but go ahead and have at it. See if you can figure it out.
I think it's the Chargers, probably.
I agree with you, Austin.
All right. Let's reveal it. It is not the Chargers. Let's see what their ranks are. So they're number 1 in points per game allowed. Heck of a defense. They're also number 1 in defensive EPA. But when it comes to DVOA, they're actually down at number 8. So I'm going to give y'all one more shot at it and see if you can figure out the other defense that it might be.
Broncos. I'm thinking maybe Broncos or Packers.
I like both of those, or I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Chiefs either. I don't think that they're great, but I think their numbers will show up well.
That's fair.
I'd be good with whatever you picked, Austin.
I think Broncos.
Yeah.
That's my gut.
Just so I don't ruin another question that I've got lined up, because I already ruined one myself. It's not any of the teams you've mentioned so far. So I'm going to give you one more chance here without uncovering a team here. One more shot at it. It's a surprise team, one I wouldn't have picked. What one other team is top 3 in both EPA and DVOA?
The Lions. The Lions have had a really good secondary. I know DVOA likes good secondaries.
Austin likes the Lions. Shane?
I would agree with him on that. I mean, the other one, like you said, I think the Titans are a terrible team, but if you're also that high in yards per game, then you could also, manage to stay inside that top level too. That'd be the one outsider from this group that I would think would be a possibility.
All right, you got a final answer?
I went with my call for the Broncos, and last one you can take this one, Shane.
Okay, let's go with the Titans then. We'll just change it up.
All right, we'll change it up here. I'll show the Titans, and it's not the Titans. They actually are good in EPA and DVOA, 10th and 11th, but 29th in points per game allowed, so they're getting drugged down there. Austin, you had this one right. It is the Lions. I would not have guessed this, but they're 20th in yards per game, and they're sitting here at 3rd in EPA and 3rd in DVOA, so both statistical analysis like this defense, even though they're sitting at 8 in points per game. All right, so that takes care of that one, and I apologize to the audience for me messing up the first question. I've got 2 more questions, and then we'll be done with this one, okay? Only one team ranks top 6 in all 4 categories. Which team is it? So only one team ranks top 6 in all 4 categories. Guys, take it away.
It's got to be the Chiefs, the Broncos. I think it just has to be.
No, let's go with the Broncos. Austin, I think, was on the right track with them before.
All right. So final answer Broncos for both of you.
Yep.
You got it. That's it. Denver has a heck of a defense. They're 5th in yards per game allowed, 4th in points per game, 4th in EPA, and 6th in DVOA. They have one heck of a defense right here. All right, one more question for you tonight out of my convoluted little brain here. I mentioned we saw here that the Chargers and the Broncos were both give me one second here. We're both top 10 in all 4 categories, okay? After them, there's one other team who's top 10 in all 4 categories. Who is that team?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed
I like
to
the
what Austin
Chiefs.
said before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are the other one.
All right, fair enough. It's not the Chiefs, but they are good. 4th in
EPA.
DVOA, 5th in points per game, but the EPA wasn't quite as big a fan of the Kansas City defense, pulling them in at 13. The answer to that question, the other top 4 defense across the board, is the Steelers. Yep. So they're number 2 in points per game allowed, 6th in EPA, 10th in DVOA. Real quick, I'll pull the veil off the other teams. Eagles coming in. The Eagles are climbing statistically all the way across this. Texans with a pretty good defense here. Jets with a good defense, but DVOA doesn't love them. They're top 10 in the other categories. 49ers, decent defense. Dolphins struggling across the board here. Packers coming in top 12-ish, top 7-ish, depending on what you like here. And then the Bills, kind of a mixed bag there. All right, so that was our scramble drill. I appreciate the guys participating in that. I give them 0 heads up on this. Absolutely none. I don't even tell them what's coming. So that's some hard stuff to work with. I had a lot of data tonight, so thank y'all very much. Again, the point is, as it sorted out, it felt like Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Steelers. Who else am I missing? The Vikings. Those were some of the top defenses this year out of this group. All right, let's go to our final 60. Shane, you're up first.
My final 60, where I'm going to go with officiating. I got a chance to watch the very tail end of BYU versus Utah football game, where the first time I've ever seen the athletic director of a school come out and complain about officiating. And I think there's been an awful lot of talk about how things go. One person that brought it up, Joel Klatt, that works for Fox Sports. I think he's an excellent analyst, but he also talked about across the board that pass interference and defensive holding is just incredibly hard to call in the college game and in the program. As a high school coach, pass interference is often the bane of my existence. I see some times where you would say we could probably call it on every single play, and then when you don't see it, you think some guys have just been, absolutely abused and not gotten a call out of it. I think the reason why I bring it up most is NFL officials are still part-time employees. A lot of them have some pretty high-end jobs that they do, and they're not masquerading as officials. But I think it might be time where you have officials that this is their full-time gig. I mean, I know that takes a lot of elements out of the game, but with the way technology is and the aspects of people going after officiating more and more, I think it's become tougher and tougher to be an official. And it might be time for this to be their only job.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. Listen, there's so much money in the NFL. Why can't you come up with enough money to pay the refs to just do this full time? And if they don't want to give up their other career, then that's on them, But let's hire some guys. I've been hearing this for a long time. Every kind of third year or so, it pops up where we get these calls. Shane, you mentioned the Utah game. I was literally sitting in my hotel room in Mount Airy at night watching that Utah BYU game, and I couldn't believe it. Utah, by fourth quarter, Utah was destroying BYU. BYU couldn't even hardly get a pass off. That's how much they were getting destroyed. The game was basically over, and then this one call came up, gave BYU another chance, and then they rattled off a 30-yard pass play and went on to kick the field goal. I try not to blame referees too much for games, but that was pretty brutal. I really felt like Utah got the raw end there.
I agree with you on that, Ben. And the thing that kind of brought it up to me was the pass interference, defensive holding. I think that was one of the better calls. As you see more and more film, you definitely could have called it, but there were some other calls in that game that were absolutely brutal. And if you're a Utah fan, I can certainly see where you'd be going, this is the setup. We have an undefeated BYU team. We're both in the Big 12. Like, this seems like a setup. And then it comes out that the athletic director pulled no shots and said, this is why we fired you, because that linesman in that game was an official for the Pac-12 before that conference disintegrated. So had a chance to call both of those games before for Utah. I imagine that that fine will sit well with Utah fans that at least had their athletic director go out after him. But just a crazy end to a game.
Yeah, that one was especially rough. You got a Utah team that's kind of not going anywhere, and the optics aren't good because you've got a BYU team that's got the perfect record on the line. Austin, your final 60, man.
Mine's gonna be for college basketball, which is the most fun version of basketball to watch. I'm not the biggest fan of regular season NBA these days. It doesn't kind of scratch the itch for me, but college basketball absolutely does. And there's good ones on all the time now. Just watched Villanova get upset earlier. Not that Villanova's the team that they are every year, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. College basketball. If you are someone who's become a kind of stale to the NBA as I have over the last 5 or 6 years, try watching some college hoops. I think you will get more enjoyment out of it than the pro game these days.
The matchups are so fun. I watched Baylor, I think, get run out of the building by Gonzaga, and then 2 days later beat a ranked team. The matchups are a lot of fun, and you can see a lot of, if you want to, you can see a lot of mature teams beating more talented teams. It's kind of cycled its way back through here at the college basketball level. My final 60 is going to be college football. It's something that Shane has touched on several times over the season so far. I don't have room for all the great stories in college football, but this is some of the leaders right here. The BYU team we mentioned getting a little bit lucky last week, but still they're 9-0. They're surprisingly better than anybody thought they were going to be at the start of the season. Army here, man, they're my favorite story. All right, they're 9-0. They are absolutely killing it. They're in both the rankings, the playoffs, and the AP run here. We'll see how they finish out, but they're 9-0. It's just it's so unusual for Army and Navy to be this good in the season. So I absolutely love it. Navy, the shine has come off just a little bit, but they're 7-2, and I promise they won't care about 7-2 if they can go in and beat Army, especially if Army's undefeated and they can beat an undefeated Army and just ruin that. Navy won't care about any of the other games if they can do that. Indiana is my second favorite story of the year. Goodness gracious. Shane's mentioned them more than once. They're 10-0. They're legit. They got a big matchup, I think, against Ohio State coming up, so we'll see how they handle that. But this is a legit Indiana team, just tremendous football. They're ranked, I think, 4th or 5th in the country in the poll, not today's poll, but last week's poll. They are just cleaning house. Colorado with Deion Sanders, by everybody, including myself, was expected to maybe get 6 wins, 5 wins. It's about where they were supposed to be. They're at 7-2 right now. And like him or not, Deion's got it rolling right now, him and a couple of Heisman hopefuls, and they're just tremendous year for the Buffaloes. And then the quiet one is Southern Methodist. You talk about sneaking up on everybody down here with the Red Horse. They are 8-1. They had a big win this past week, and they're sitting kind of on the outside right now, but they got a real shot at being in the playoffs and maybe even doing a little bit of damage once they get there. So hats off to all these teams right here. I couldn't get everybody on here that I wanted to, but these 6 teams just having unusually good seasons for where they've kind of been, some of them for decades, really. So hats off to all of them. Shane, any final thoughts for anybody? Or if not, just tell everybody where they can find maybe some more of you.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the spot that originated. The only other time that you can see me is I do that Thursday night thing with Yusuf, who was on our podcast before. That's pretty much it. I love to hear you talk college football. You know that's my all-time favorite. I appreciate Austin's too, especially living where Austin is in that triangle. There's a lot of close, great college basketball that you can see up close and personal. Being a Duke fan my entire life, there's a lot of talent on that team this year, and I love this time of college basketball too. You get some great tournaments around the Thanksgiving, chance to see some high-powered teams play against each other.
All right, Austin, final thoughts? If not, tell everybody about y'all's main show, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you gonna be watching the Duke Kentucky game tonight then, Shane?
I am indeed, yeah.
Me too, me too. Yeah, come check me out on Tricky Takes, my podcast. We post usually Fridays. Sometimes we'll sneak in a sneaky Thursday episode, but come check us out, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, we're there.
That's Tricky Takes. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Next week we are gonna have that pie episode in which I've asked Shane and Austin to do a couple of unusual things. We'll skip Struggle Bus, but we'll be right back next week with a lot more great content. So enjoy your football or your basketball or whatever you're into, and have a great week. Bye.